Part 54. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 531. Standing quietly by the window, carefully distinguishing the subtle footsteps outside the window, with the fifth level of chi refining power as the foundation, at this moment, Suchen's feelings about the outside world were instantly magnified. Tiny footsteps slowly approached his room. If Suchen were an ordinary person, even if that person walked in front of him, he wouldn't be able to spot him as long as he didn't open his eyes. It can be inferred that the people who came here have some chi training skills. However, Suchen felt that the person who could be detected by him probably didn't have high skills, at least not as high as himself. The footsteps reached the window and stopped. After 10 breaths of silence, a finger gently poked the window paper without making much sound. It was obviously stained with saliva. A small bamboo tube stretched out, and Suchen immediately realized what the man was going to do. After all, he had watched so many costume TV dramas, and he held his breath. A faint puff of smoke blew into the room from the small bamboo tube, and then there was silence outside the window for a while. Probably that person felt that the time was ripe, and when he heard the footsteps, he should be walking to the door. Suchen could see the tip of a knife protruding from the crack in the door, and moved the door bolt bit by bit against the wood. With a click, the door bolt tilted to the side. After waiting for a few breaths, the door gently opened with a creak. The moonlight was very dim, and even if Suchen's vision had the help of spiritual energy, it would be difficult to see everything clearly. He could only vaguely see a short, thin man tiptoeing into the room with his back slightly in his arms. When Suchen saw his pair of green eyes, he felt something was wrong. He didn't know whether he was a human or a strange guy. He looked towards the bed and said, "Huh." At this moment, Suchen, who had been standing by the window, let out a low roar and used all his strength to pounce towards the black shadow. Although the eyes of this humanoid thing glowed green like a beast. The light was extremely weird. But Suchen knew that he couldn't wait any longer. That thing could obviously see like a candle in the dark night, but he could only see a group of human-shaped black shadows. If the other party really noticed it, he would definitely be passive. How about that? Go all out and strike first. The thing reacted quickly. When it heard the movement, it slashed at the dagger in its hand. How could Suchen dare to fight with his fleshy hands? Fortunately, he was already at the 5th level of chi refining and could see the dagger clearly. Even though his body was in mid-air, he had enough time to react to the trajectory of the blow. Suchen saw the right moment and slapped the opponent with one hand against the back of the knife, while the other hand still clamped the opponent's collar. After all, the skill of that thing far inferior to him, otherwise, Suchen had never learned any secrets of moves. How could he be able to unload the opponent's attack so smoothly and still catch the person? That thing obviously didn't expect that Suchen was so skilled. Like a slippery loach, as soon as the situation turned around, Suchen only had the clothes in his hands. The thing's gleaming green eyes glanced at Suchen, and immediately ran out the door. Suchen's back felt chilled by his eyes. But as soon as his thoughts changed, he hurriedly chased after him. This thing had already seen his face, and it was very likely that he was his enemy or a killer sent by his enemy. If he escaped, the secret he had kept would be exposed. The danger of death is not far away. The humanoid monster in black kicked his legs over the low courtyard wall, and Suchen also followed suit and turned over. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 532. Chapter 532 Hero, Spare Your Life. The two were chasing each other in the narrow alley. It was obvious that the humanoid monster in black had never learned Qing Kung Fu, and was gradually being caught up by Suchen. Seeing that the situation was not good, the guy saw an abandoned door panel leaning against it and casually pulled it over. Suchen stretched out his hand and patted the door panel to pieces, but the speed also slowed down slightly. The guy thought this was a good idea and threw various things at him along the way. Suchen was angry, so he ignored it and tried his best to avoid the attacks on his head. He took a few hard blows and caught up with the guy. An angry man hugged the guy's arm tightly and pressed him to the ground, unable to move. The guy struggled desperately for a few times and found that he couldn't move at all. He quickly begged for mercy. "My hero, have mercy. My hero, have mercy." When Suchen heard this, he could speak human words and asked, "Are you a human or a monster?" The guy said quickly, "I am a human being. I am a human being. Please let me go this time. I will never dare to do it again next time." Suchen Li ignored this guy's words and said, "Then why are the eyes glowing green?" "This is because the younger one has practiced a special skill. His eyes glow green and he can see the night as if it were day." This guy suddenly became very obedient. Suchen raised his eyebrows and said, "Oh, there are also these techniques, bring them to me to see." The man was pressed to the ground and still laughed and said, "Master, if you want to see the little one, you must give it to me, but how dare you carry such a small one with you? They usually find a secret place to hide it. Why don't you let me go? I'll take you there." Suchen sneered behind him. The words of this kind of person are like shit. If you really believe it, you may even lose your life. After thinking about it, he looked around and saw that there was still some distance away from the place where people lived. He felt a little confused in his heart. Cruelly, he held this guy's hands with one hand, pressed his body with his legs, and pulled a bunch of rags from this guy's body with the other hand and stuffed them into this guy's mouth. Woo woo woo, the guy's eyes finally showed a hint of fear, as if begging for mercy. Suchen grabbed his hands, closed his eyes, and with a fierce blow, there was a click and he broke one of his fingers. Woo, the man's mouth was gagged with a rag, and his face was distorted in pain. Suchen's face twitched a few times unnaturally, but thinking about it, this is no longer the world before. Now this world only believes in blood and power. Jam, another crisp sound. Jam. Jam. There were 3 crisp sounds in a row, and the guy's nerves were tough enough. He didn't faint. He just had tears and runny nose, and a painful groan came from his nose. Suchen said in his ear, "I won't let you go. Yes, you will die tonight. The only difference is whether you listen to me and die happily, or you disobey and get tortured to death by me little by little." Tearing off the rag in his mouth, the man took a few breaths, laughed nervously a few times, and then said, "Little, I'm not stupid. I will listen to you. I will definitely listen to you." Suchen didn't know whether what this guy said was true or not, so he asked, "Why do you want to harm me?" The man was startled for a moment and asked doubtfully, "Harm you? I just came here to steal something valuable. Then why not go anywhere else but to a poor person like me who obviously has no money?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 533. Chapter 533, Skill Secrets. The man chuckled and said, "As long as you have stayed in Su City for a long time, who doesn't know that there is a young master of the Su family living here? I wonder if your father was once so powerful, how could he leave a few treasures in your hands? How can you say it is a poor family?" Suchen's eyes flashed and he thought for a while. There is a 50% chance that this person is a habitual thief, but he does not rule out that he is a snoop. Even if he is a thief, he cannot be kept. This kind of person is the most unreliable. Suchen can sure, if you let him go, everyone in the city will know the news about his good skills the next day, and I am afraid that he will be killed immediately. Suchen asked, "Where is your secret book of Kung Fu?" "My eldest young master of the Su family, I really didn't lie to you this time. Look at me, I'm going to die. The secret book was placed in the front door of his house in Laoba Alley. The younger one dug a hole in it for safety. What family? It was the He family, whose entire family was wiped out. Suchen thought thoughtfully. He had heard of the He family when he was a child, but he had to see it to know whether it was there. Okay, if you are still obedient, I will give you a happy death. The man was smiling and didn't seem to be afraid of death at all. It was just the pain from his severed fingers that occasionally made his face twitch unnaturally. Young master, did the younger one kill the younger one before he died and find a place to bury the younger one? It's small and doesn't take up much space. It can be burned into ashes to save you any trouble. Suchen nodded expressionlessly. After hesitating for a long time, he suddenly punched his fist. Suddenly his skull cracked and his brains splattered everywhere. That man is too dead to die anymore. Suchen was stunned for a long time. I heard a sound and moved 3 or 4 meters away from the man. The moon appeared from the clouds, taking a clear picture of the man's broken head and all the red and white things, as if it was for let Suchen see clearly. Suchen's heart was pounding and his lips were dry. This was his first time to kill someone. His head was in chaos, and there were various sounds in his ears. He didn't know if they were ghosts or people. Slow down. After a long time, Suchen came back to his senses. Don't worry about killing people or not, destroying the body and eliminating traces is the top priority. He dragged the man's body to the back of an empty yard and found a pile of firewood and piled it on him. Just now I wanted to light a fire, but suddenly I realized that the fire was not yet ignited, and everyone could see it. I quickly opened the pile of firewood, dragged the body out, dug a hole next to a cesspool, and threw the body in. After covering the soil and making the soil layer as natural as the side, Suchen cleaned up all the bloodstains and traces along the way, and then breathed a heavy sigh of relief. After looking around and finding nothing unusual, Suchen hurried back home. The moon exudes a cold chill and envelopes Suchen, but Suchen hates the bright moonlight at this time. After killing someone, he only hopes that the dark night will cover up his figure and everything that happened that night. Returning to his yard again, Suchen cleaned it carefully, stood in front of Xiaoyu's window and listened quietly to her gentle breathing for a while, and then his heart gradually calmed down. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 534. Chapter 534, Small Transformation Technique. Suchen was not sleepy at all at this time. He was sitting on the cold stone steps, looking at the same moon as in his previous life, feeling a little crazy in his heart. He comforted himself that in this place, killing was nothing, and he was not killing innocent people indiscriminately, so it was okay. Suddenly, he stood up, stared blankly ahead, quickly climbed over the courtyard wall, and came to the burial ground again. The place where the body was found. Suchen looked around, then dug up the soil and pulled out the body. The first time he killed someone, he actually forgot to search this guy's body. Fortunately, I remembered it. After groping carefully, he stripped the body almost naked, and found a few pieces of silver, a bamboo pipe, and some tobacco-like things from his body, but nothing else. After packing his things, Suchen pushed the body down and threw down the clothes he took off. Just as he was about to cover it with soil again, Suchen suddenly said hey and picked up the underwear from the pit. Under the moonlight, a foot-long square of silk cloth was sewn inside the undershirt, which was completely different from the linen clothes. Small characters were embroidered on the silk with black thread, densely packed, with 4 conspicuous big characters on the right. Transformation skill. Damn it! You are actually hiding here and reminding me to have you cremated. You are so awesome, Suchen spat at the corpse in the pit. If he hadn't checked carefully, he might not have been able to find any secrets in front of the so-called He family gate in the future. Maybe there was another secret inside, and something had been hit. It's very possible that it's an agency. Suchen gave himself some snacks to never trust strangers, or he would lose his life without knowing how. He covered it with soil again, erased the traces, took the undershirt. Suchen quietly returned to his room. Standing in front of the window, Suchen carefully cut out a long square piece of silk from his undershirt by the moonlight. The undershirt was thrown into the stove and burned. Suchen held the piece of silk in the moonlight. He looked at it carefully. After a long time, Suchen put away the silk with a slightly excited expression. The spiritual energy in his body moved slightly and gathered in his eyes. His eyes immediately emitted a cold green light like wolf eyes, and the scenery in the distance changed drastically. It was not a blur, but could be seen as clearly as during the day. Suchen exclaimed in his heart that it was a good thing, and tried other spells. I don't know who wrote this small technique of transformation. As long as you have the ability to refine your chi, anyone on the first level can practice it. The method is also simple. Use the spiritual energy in the body to act on the eyes, muscles, and skin to produce slight changes. But the most peculiar features of a person's face are that by slightly changing a few places, people can completely recognize them. It doesn't come out. The muscles on his face are sunken in, the skin is tightened, and the eyelids are drooped a little. Suchen has a completely different appearance. I believe that even if Xiaoyu, who has been with him day and night, came over to take a look, he still wouldn't be able to recognize this complete stranger. He is the young master of his family. The small transformation technique is just a minor skill among many techniques, but it has a great effect on Suchen at this time. Although Xiaoyu's makeup is exquisite, she still has concerns about being discovered. There is no need to worry about this small transformation technique. A person is still the same person, even if someone scratches his face, nothing can be found. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 535. Chapter 535 The Consequences of Murder. From now on, Suchen can change his appearance and walk around Su City openly. Perhaps, the time for myself and Xiaoyu to leave Su City can be pushed back, Suchen thought so. After all, even if his cultivation reaches the realm of Qi Refiner, he can barely protect himself. If he takes Xiaoyu with him, it will be difficult for Suchen to safely cross the vast area controlled by Su City, which is hundreds of thousands of miles away. The reason why he wanted to escape from the entire Soviet Union was because Suchen couldn't find out who wanted to kill him. 10 years ago, when I was still a teenager, hatred could only come from my parents in that memory. But in my memory, my parents were one of the few kind-hearted people in Sioux City. They were well off but not too rich. The only thing that can be regarded as a big deal is that his father was extremely talented and ranked second in Qi refining in the entire Sioux City, but he was a little lower than the current head of the family, Suren Huang. Moreover, Suren Chang is a direct descendant of the Su family, and his father is only a collateral descendant. There is no need to fight for power with Suren Chang. Moreover, if Su people are smart enough, they should try their best to win over collateral children like their father who are destined not to reach the peak of power. In fact, my father and Surenwen had always had a good relationship back then. Finally, when the head of the family, Suren Qiang, learned that his father had been killed on the way to escort the family's treasure, he became so sad that he fell seriously ill and complained that he had lost an arm. Judging from the information about his parents in his memory, the problem can only lie with someone from the Su family who had a holiday with his father, or with the group of bandits who attacked and killed his father and others. No matter which side the person wants to harm him, Suchen can't solve it. At least with the strength of the Qi refiner, Suchen could test the opponent and pull out some clues. Now, all we can do is keep a low profile and keep our tail between our legs. Suchen grabbed the piece of silk that recorded Shu and sat on the cold stone steps. The bright moonlight fell above his head, slightly calming down the feeling of killing someone for the first time in his life. He suddenly felt very lonely, so lonely that his whole body became cold. Kind of. So Suchen gently pushed open the door of Xiaoyu's wing, walked in, and closed it gently. Walking to the bed, the moonlight outside the window shone on the bed curtains, showing a cold deep purple. Suchen sat on the footrest, put his head through the bed curtains, pillowed on the sheets, breathed in the warm scent of Xiaoyu, and gradually fell asleep. When the crescent moon set in the west and the sun rose in the east, Xiaoyu woke up and was startled by Suchen. After finding him lying on the bedside sleeping all night, he put the quilt on Suchen sadly. Even in late autumn, the nights are still very cold. After breakfast, Suchen selectively told Xiaoyu what happened last night, saving him the process of killing someone. He performed a transformation technique for her and told her his plan to go out and take jobs to make money. Suchen found a hidden place and left through the back door, transformed into a slightly cold face, suddenly appeared in an alley a few hundred meters away from home, and then walked boldly on the crowded street. Although he looked nonchalant, Suchen kept his heart tense and ran away as soon as he realized something was wrong. Fortunately, after walking around for a long time, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. So Suchen found a tour guide who had a pretty good reputation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 536. Chapter 536, Make Money and Repair. After paying an introduction fee of 2 cents and using the pseudonym Ding Er, Suchen officially became a porter at the Songjia Wharf. Sioux City is so huge. The city wall is 30 miles wide and 50 miles long. It is not an exaggeration to call it a giant city. However, giant cities of this size are also common in this world. After all, even a farmer has some refining skills. It is not impossible to build such a huge city. Precisely because Sioux City is so big, with millions of people in the city, the total amount of materials consumed every day is also terrifying. So no matter which terminal, there is endless cargo to be moved every day. The hard work of porters will not be too crowded. Suchen, now known as Ding Er, the foreman at Songjia Wharf, is quite kind. You can get 1 copper plate for each time you carry 100 kilograms of goods from the wharf to the warehouse. There is a bookkeeper next to the warehouse to record the total amount of work you do, and you will eventually be paid according to the recorded data. With Suchen's cultivation at the 5th level of chi refining, he could effortlessly pick up a cargo of 400 kilograms at a time and carry 4 copper plates back and forth at a very fast speed. I made nearly 500 copper coins in one morning, which was nearly half a tael of silver. Suchen took this bag containing more than 400 copper coins and went to the market to buy an old hen, a handful of fresh vegetables, a large bag of rice, a few candles, and a 4-foot-long piece of cloth, and the money was spent. There. After making a few big turns, I put all these things in a big bag in a deserted place, dug a hole, and buried them. Suchen planned to come back at night to take it back. With both hands free, Suchen continued to go to the dock and stopped working when Sex was approaching. Suchen took advantage of the darkness, dug out the big bag, approached the area as covertly as possible, and then found a place to hide. After waiting for another half an hour and finding no movement, he changed his face to a pale face, hunched over and returned home with a big bag on his back. Xiaoyu sat in the middle of the yard and waited for the young master to come back. Night gradually fell, Xiaoyu hugged her thin shoulders and kept looking at the door. The big tree with all its leaves in the center of the yard stretched out to the sky like a hand bone. The yard with only one person was so empty and quiet. The door creaked open, revealing the young master's familiar face. Xiaoyu instantly became happy. He ran over and took Suchen's hand, asking him this and that, and then started chattering about what he had encountered today, as if he had endless things to say. Suchen felt warm inside. No matter how lonely and tired you are, when you know that there is someone at home waiting for you to come back, all the hard work is nothing. They lit candles and cooked dinner together with Xiaoyu. After the meal, the two of them talked again and then went back to their houses. Suchen sat cross-legged on the bed, practicing the infinite true method qi refining chapter. Now Suchen has long regarded practicing as sleeping. Every time he inhales the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, he feels refreshed and exhausted. The next day, he continued to move goods at the dock. After a month of living in hiding, Suchen's qi refining cultivation level successfully reached the 7th level. However, the cargo carried on the dock was still 400 kilograms per trip, neither increasing nor decreasing. Suchen did not want to attract attention. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 537. Chapter 537 Tianquan Secret Realm. Xiaoyu gradually got used to the days when the young master was not at home all day long. However, sometimes Xiaoyu would suddenly sneak into Suchen's room in the middle of the night, sit next to Suchen, and grab some of the young master's clothes before she could slowly fall asleep. At noon that day, Suchen finished settling the bill at the foreman of the Song family dock and was about to go home early. Suddenly there were screams and screams from behind. Suchen immediately turned his head, but was frightened to death by the sight in front of him. A black hole the size of a small house appeared out of thin air over the pier, and the twisted light around the black hole turned into fly ash wherever it hit. The black hole slowly advanced from the dock and expanded at an extremely slow rate. The large ship parked at the dock was cut into half by the distorted light around the black hole, and the section was scorched black. It didn't take long for the remaining half of the ship to tilt in the water and gradually sink. Most of the screams just now came from that boat, including the porters and some guests on the boat who had no time to disembark. Anyone who is scraped by the edge of a black hole will die. The docks were in chaos. Suchen ran back with the flow of people, but the people who came after hearing the news pushed forward to watch the excitement. After all, the black hole was advancing slowly, and there was no big threat. Those who had seen the power of black holes were so anxious that they kicked and kicked, and the scene was temporarily chaotic. Suchen was at the 7th level of qi refining and was much stronger than the people around him. A small group of people hid behind the crowd and stood under the eaves of a tea house, craning their necks with the other guests who came out to watch the excitement. After a quarter of an hour, the black hole stopped moving forward and stopped in front of warehouse number 1 at Songjia Wharf. The foreman was so anxious that he burst into tears and begged everyone to move the goods out of the warehouse. If all the goods were fed to this unknown black hole, not only would the foreman's previous wealth be ruined, but he would also have to owe a lot of debt to his employer in the future. The black hole expanded to a size of 2 feet and stabilized. The scene inside was no longer pitch black, but began to slowly reveal a vague scene of lush vegetation. Suddenly someone exclaimed, "Oh my God!" That turned out to be the Tianquan Secret Realm. The Secret Realm of Tianquan. Everyone exclaimed and asked each other what the Secret Realm of Tianquan was. Suddenly, a group of knights in black clothes and ribbons rode on tall horses and lined up the crowd, shouting loudly, "This place has been listed as a forbidden area of the Su family. The Su clan, leave quickly, otherwise don't blame me, the Black Cavalry Guard, for being merciless." The Black Cavalry Guard whipped his long whip, and the person who was rubbed by the whip would lose a piece of flesh, and suddenly there was a howl of ghosts and wolves. The Black Cavalry Guard wanted to drive away everyone and claim the entrance to the Tianquan Secret Realm as his own. But others are not stupid. Even if your Su family is the local emperor in Su city, do I have to listen to you in everything? Suddenly many people shouted, "Why are you still standing there stupidly? Go to Tianquan Secret Realm to grab treasures." The scene was finally in complete chaos. The black cavalry guards stood in front of the black hole to block everyone, but how could so many masters in the huge Su city belong to the Su family? In the face of the temptation of endless treasures, who did the Su family count? So one by one they asked the black cavalry. The guards attacked, and the smarter and more agile people slipped in through the cracks and dived into the black hole. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 538. Chapter 538. Anyone who trespasses in the restricted area of the Su family will die. Ah! 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 A sudden change occurred. Those who broke through the black cavalry guards and jumped into the black hole with their front half entered the hole, but the back half fell down with a cry of blood. They were cut in half by the black hole. Damn it! This entrance is not yet stable. Besides, Suchan, a middle-aged swordsman in black, said bitterly. Suchan quietly moved away from the swordsman. He instinctively felt that this person was dangerous. He was only at the 7th level of chi refining, but he still knew he weighs a few kilograms, and the group of people who shout the loudest are at least masters in the realm of chi refiners. People like him can only be used as cannon fodder. Suchan wants to hide, but things in the world are not what he wants. The swordsman grabbed Suchan, who was just a few steps away, like a chicken. The swordsman in black smiled cruelly. Hey, little guy, time waits for no one. The masters of the Su family will be here soon. You can do it now. Let me explore the path. Suchan was shocked, but the black sword, Suchan's profound cultivation, was something Suchan could not withstand, and he was immediately thrown into the black hole by the swordsman in black with great precision. Suchan shouted, closing his eyes and sighing that life is short. But I didn't expect to pass through the black hole so smoothly and nothing would happen. There was no time to feel the joy of surviving the catastrophe. Something like a turbulent flow in the space wrapped around him and flew to an unknown direction. Suchan was thrown away like a rag bag by the turbulent flow in the space. After a while, he fainted from happiness. On the street outside the black hole, Suchan was thrown in, but it was strange. Everyone could clearly see that the time had come to enter Tiancan, and the scene suddenly became extremely chaotic. Whether they were ordinary porters, or hidden masters like the middle-aged swordsman in black, they all got into the holes one by one, fearing to be left behind. There are even some people with high cultivation levels who cut their way along the way, just to enter the so-called Tiancan secret realm as early as possible. Several rays of light flew up, but they were some masters on the field who had reached the Ningzhen realm. They controlled flying swords and flew steadily into the black hole, but they didn't want to hear several screams. Damn it! This Tiancan secret realm actually prevents people who have cultivated in the Ningzhen realm from entering. The person at the end who was driving the flying sword woke up early and had time to escape. However, the two Ningzhen realm masters in front were cut in half by the black hole, which frightened the master into a cold sweat. Just when the situation was out of control, a 10-foot wide piece of ice fell from the sky, with the power of freezing everything, and landed in front of the black hole. Those who hid quickly were lucky, while those who hid slowly, even if they only touched a little bit of this ice, they would instantly turn into human-shaped popsicles, and they would be miserable. There was no time to scream. As the sky fire fell, a deafening voice sounded: those who trespass in the forbidden area of the Su family will die. In the sky, a ray of green light shot out very quickly, followed far behind by several rays of light of various colors, mostly green light. Everyone exclaimed, the head of the Su family is here, run. The green light was so close that I could see clearly that it was a huge long sword with green light. There was a person standing on it. He had a broad forehead and a long beard, and a majestic face. He was wearing a green shirt flying fiercely in the wind. It was Su, the only top master in the family who has reached Ruoshui realm, Su Renchang. Su Renchang looked around everyone. No one around him dared to look directly into his eyes. How powerful one person is, Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection, recommend and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 539. Chapter 539 White Snake Fruit. Suren went to speak slowly. Everyone, Su doesn't want to go on a killing spree, but if someone ignores the majesty of the Su family, then don't blame Su for being ruthless. The Su family will not have exclusive access to the Tianquan secret realm, but you need to be in the Su family. Under the leadership of the family, we agreed on the charter and acted according to the rules. Behind him, 5 or 6 Sujianing Zhenjing masters who controlled flying swords also arrived one after another, and the situation was brought under control. Heads of the major families in Su City kept coming quickly to pay their respects to Suren, fearing that they would be pushed out if they were left behind and unable to go to the Tianquan secret realm, a rare treasure that could only be found in 1,000 years. The order outside the black hole is under control, but there is chaos inside the black hole. Before the Su people rushed over, hundreds of people below the Ningzhen realm had already entered in less than a quarter of an hour. Through the turbulent flow of space, some people were grouped together, while others were left alone without knowing where they ended up. In some places, 3 people appear at the same time. The good-tempered master will actively invite everyone to hunt for treasure together, and the benefits will be divided equally according to credit. If you have a bad temper, if you see an outsider, you will kill him with one move, saving you another person who will steal the treasure. As for those who fall into an area alone, if they are lucky, the surroundings are safe. If they take just 2 steps, they may find a 1,000-year-old spiritual tree full of spiritual fruits. Those who are unlucky will either fall directly into the abyss, or fall into the lair of monsters and become food. If you don't cultivate to the Ningzhen realm, you won't be able to control the flying magic weapon. Su Chen was either lucky or not. He was the first one to come in and landed on the edge of a cliff. If he turned over, he would fall into the depths. After breaking out in a cold sweat, Su Chen drove away from the cliff. After looking around for a while, there are dense forests, ancient trees, and cliffs. In front of the cliff is a sea of clouds, which is really spectacular. This cliff stretches for an unknown number of miles, with no end in sight from left to right, and there is no way to go ahead. The mountain wind wrapped in the clouds hit the face, making it wet and cold. Fortunately, my cultivation was already at the 7th level of qi refining, and I was protected from the cold and heat. Although I was still wearing a porter's short-sleeved clothes, I didn't feel any discomfort. However, the spiritual energy here is much richer than outside, as if taking a deep breath will increase the spiritual energy in the Danshan. He didn't know how long he would be trapped in this so-called secret realm of Tianquan. Su Chen was a little worried about Xiaoyu at home. The remaining money is enough. I have saved a small sum of money from working every day for a month, which is enough for Xiaoyu to live for more than half a year. The only thing worth worrying about is that Xiaoyu will go out to look for herself when she returns after a long absence, which will cause many uncontrollable dangers. Su Chen calmed down and could only take one step at a time. If this Tianquan secret realm is worthy of so many people risking their lives to enter, there must be great benefits. White snake fruit. Suddenly, a strange voice sounded behind Su Chen. Behind him was a cliff. Su Chen was just thinking about what he would encounter when entering the dense forest, because it was full of huge ancient trees dozens of feet high, making people look particularly small and depressed inside. At this time, he was facing away from the cliff, but suddenly he heard a voice, and his scalp and back felt numb. Turning around, he saw an old man with a childlike face and fair hair, and a kind face. He was looking at Su Chen with a smile. Su Chen was alert, staring at him. I don't know how this old man appeared. If it was not brought here by the turbulence of space, then it is something in the secret realm itself. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 540. Chapter 540, Intrigues. It's okay to come from the outside, but the things in the secret realm are the scariest. Who knows if they are transformed by monsters or beasts, or are cold things like souls? How could Suchen, who didn't know any offensive or defensive skills and only had 7 levels of chi refining skills, protect himself in this place? Seemingly sensing Suchen's hostility, the old man smiled and said, "I recognize you. You are the little brother who was thrown in by the 9-leaf swordsman. You must be lucky if you survive the disaster." Suchen was vigilant. A little explanation: it seems that this old man is also a person who comes here to hunt for treasures, not some monster or mountain spirit. I don't know what to call the old gentleman. Suchen softened his expression slightly and asked. He didn't understand anything, and he probably wouldn't even recognize the treasure in front of him. One more person would give him more knowledge. The old man smiled and said, "Just call me Mr. Chiu. I wonder what your little brother's last name is." Next Chuji Suchen said. "Oh, the most capable one at Songji appear," Lao Chiu answered, with a smile on his face, his eyes hidden behind drooped eyelids, but he didn't know what he was thinking about. Suchen asked Lao Chiu just seemed to be talking about white snake fruit. The old man nodded and said 30 feet below the cliff, there is a clover growing, and the fruit on it is the white snake fruit. After people in the chi refining stage eat it, they can instantly rise to a small level. Oh? Suchen was a little surprised and said, "There is such a magical fruit." This old man just stood behind him, silently. Not only did he go to the cliff and see the white snake fruit growing on the cliff, but he also came back a few steps to say hello to him. He was already at the 7th level of chi refining, and his senses of hearing and smell were fully developed. Sheng, such a big living person, has been behind him for so long, but he has no reaction at all. I wonder what level of cultivation the old man has reached? How powerful is his training? Mr. Chiu laughed and said, "The secret realm of Tianquan comes from the broken cave heaven paradise. Has a rich spiritual energy that far exceeds the outside world, and can naturally hatch various treasures of heaven and earth, but this white snake fruit is nothing." Looking at the old man's calm demeanor, it's as if he doesn't take a white snake fruit that has grown to a small level in his eyes. But Chiu. Lao Yi frowned and said, "This white snake fruit usually grows with the white snake. If you want to get this white snake fruit, one person cannot do it." Suchen said, "Mr. Chiu, do you need my help?" The old man smiled and said, "Exactly, to get the white snake fruit, 2 people need to lower it with a cane, one person leads the snake and the other person picks the fruit." "That's it?" "That." Chiu Lao interjected, "The old man wanted to get the fruit himself. Brother Ding was kind enough to help. Of course I lured the snake, and Brother Ding got the fruit." Suchen was a little surprised by the old man's trust. He was not afraid that he would take advantage of him to lure the snake. Time to pick the fruit and run away? But since Chiu Lao is confident, he should have a way to not be afraid of swallowing the white snake fruit alone. After thinking about it, Suchen nodded and agreed. The two walked to the edge of the cliff and looked down. 3 feet below, there was indeed a clover growing between the cliffs. There was a milky white fruit on it, exuding an alluring fragrance. Chiu Lao said solemnly, "Make the rattan rope first. Brother Ding, remember to pick it up faster later. This white snake is the most agile on the cliff, and the little old man can't deal with it for long." Underscore. Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share.